Young. Time to catch up with IVE and Baddie. I didn't catch this when it dropped for whatever reason. I don't know what I was doing. But yeah, I finally want to check this out. And just from the thumbnail and even like this first shot here, I can tell this is going to be fun. Cat humans, are they real? This is probably going to be pretty good. So let's check out Baddie.
Baddies.
Cat humans, so-called baddies.
Cat humans, so-called baddies, are ruining our society.
I'm a baddie, pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니. Catch me if you can. Nothing with the regulars. 내 뒤에는 bluebird runs. 더 솔직하게 말해줘. 착한 척은 지겨워. 우리 앞선 룰이 의미 없었어 굳이. 유행이 돌고 돌아도 난 그 틀에 없어 이미. I wanna break, I wanna kick. 뛰어놀래 시끄럽게 다채로 매력. 수많은 뼈지 위에도 빛을 발하지. 답답한 건 벗어 던져. 고개 숙일 필요 없어. I'm a baddie, pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니. Catch me if you can. bubblegum. 내 판단을 믿어 난. 할 말도 많아 참. 모자이크 없이 spit it out. 난 지가 이 troublesome. 그 누구도 can bite me. 원한다면 come try me. 언제든 you're invited. 난 thriller, so villain. 생각할 시간에 저지르는 게 my motto. I'm a baddie, pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 앞다퉈 내 길을 막지. 가뿐히 날아올 테니. Catch me if you can. I'm a baddie, 어디 그리 바삐가니. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니. Catch me if you can. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 나는 앞서 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니. Catch me if you can.
So the giant cats are great. I love those. What the heck is this? Let's go back. Baddies. Okay. So baddies are the cat humans. Okay, interesting. There's this obviously for the cat imagery or like the cat concept. This kind of reminds me of Cheshire, right? When Itzy did Cheshire, but this is like a much more like edgy kind of take on a similar concept, right? It's like. And it's more straightforward too. Like it's a little bit more meta, right? Because it's like they're actual cat people, right? Or like this ability to sort of transform into a cat, kind of. There's some interesting sort of visual themes that it started to come up. Like I see them a little bit more often now in different groups and things. But I get it. It's definitely like a trending sort of pattern. And so this definitely ties in with that. But it's fun. There's some really actually interesting rhythms that are going on with a lot of the verse sections. That second verse in particular was actually quite impressive the way she's able to deliver those verse lines. That's a very intense rhythm that is at 16 notes and really, really tight groupings. I mean, it's starting to get near the percussion rhythm level where you have like 30-second notes, like these very, very fast syllables that are in there. And I really dig the I believe it's the, is there a pre-chorus? It might have been verse, but I think it might have been pre-chorus. There's a great like consonants that it just sounds so good that like there's a little bit of tension, there's a little bit of edge in the verse, and especially in the chorus, right? I think there's probably a little bit of an emphasis on the minor key quality in the chorus section, and that little sort of swept like synth tone, and like that's a very cutting sound. And over what's going on in the mix there, the sort of like that lower register vocal, right? Like it's that kind of almost like softly delivered type of vocal line in the chorus section, and the space in between, there's a sense of tension. There's a little bit of like, grit to that. But in that, I believe it was pre-chorus section, it might have been the verse too, but there's a great consonance because of the change in actually what the bass and the drums are doing. The bass has this great synth bass sound that's really moving the chord progression along, but it's so like round as opposed to the more angular like edginess that is in the chorus section. And then in the chorus section, that accent on the 2 and 4 becomes this like a steel drum, or it's really like heavy and industrial sounding, like hitting a big steel trash can or something, right? It's this clang, it's like boom, clang, right? And it's like real tinny, like bright, right? And kind of like just a bit shrill. It has a nice shape to it. It's a really cool shape, but that big drum like emphasis, like a hollow sound, you can hear it ringing, right? That clang, you hear like the resonance of it. It's a very cool sound, but it's also in that mix, it's like it creates a very stringent feel there, right? And when that other section comes around, the bass has a much more rounded shape, and the dynamics power, like the emphasis that's in the percussion, kind of steps back a little bit, and we get more of like a conventional sort of accent on 2 and 4, something more that feels more like a snare hit, just something that you're very familiar with, right? So it's a very nice consonant groove that's going on. It feels very cool, and it's a great contrast for when that chorus section comes around, and it's because it's pretty strong. Like it's fairly minimalist, there's not like a bunch of crazy stuff going on in the mix, but it rides a very deep kind of cutting groove there, and it's pretty strong,
Baddies. Cat humans, so-called
So-called
baddies.
cat humans, so-called baddies, are ruining our society.
Isn't that a bunny? I mean, right? Those are bunny ears. Those are not cat ears. Anyway.
I'm a baddie, baddie, pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 절대로 되라지, catch me if you can.
You hear that clang, right? It's a big sound. It's cool. It works. It works for many reasons. Automatically, the vocal part, this rhythm is the most intensive part in the mix, right? It's a 16 notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3, and it's all 16 notes, right? And then that accent on 2 and 4, that loud clanging sort of steel drummed sound really stands out, right? It's real industrial. It's not like it doesn't feel like an instrument sound. It literally feels like somebody's hitting a big trash can, like something you hear like in Stomp or something like that. But it's pretty interesting. It's just the right choice for the song, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily use that sound in just any song, because if you have much more sort of organic instrument like sounds, you know, like it's gonna be too strong. It's like that sticks out and draws a little bit too much of attention to it, right? But it actually works really well with this sound.
And 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니 catch me if you can. Nothing with the regulars. 내 뒤에는 blue blood runs. 더 솔직하게 말해줘. 착한 척은 지겨워.
So that kind of buzzy synth bass is boom, 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 boom. But that's such a nice shape, like that descending line. And without that loud like clanging over it, right, over the top, because we kind of get some busy hat work and a more straightforward kick snare sort of arrangement in the percussion. It's very familiar, like you know that sound already, you know what I mean? And the way that bass line now has this, you know, it's still kind of buzzy, right? But the overall shape is very rounded off now, and the way it's following that descending line, it's just, there's a consonance to it, and especially her vocal delivery over it. She's still going on 16th note subdivisions here, so the vocal is still the most rhythmically intensive part of the song, and it's very cool. You know, sometimes you get things that are a little bit more sparse, right, in terms of vocal lines. Sometimes there's more of an emphasis on melody. But it's kind of impressive, actually, that the level of intensity as far as like the rhythm for these vocal lines and the way that it's maintained like throughout the song, you know, it's good work. It really is. See, that's like a shuffle with them. Like those are really tight 16th note groupings. So she's got a fantastic sense of rhythm, you know, to fit that over this, because everything is fairly straightforward. You know, you have that bass doing that descending line, you have the percussion, which the snare, the hat work on there, that's some 16th note pattern that's going on, but it's a very narrow sound in the mix, you know, and again, very familiar. But to work with these sort of contrasting rhythmic patterns, right, these bringing in these more intense kind of shuffle rhythms over the top, this is the key to it. It's got to be pretty accurate if you want to pull it off.
I wanna break, I wanna kick,
Three distinct feelings, right, between those three parts. One was pretty much straightforward 16th notes, and the 1 and a 2 and then it was followed by more of a shuffle rhythm with some pretty tight groupings in there. Like, you know, it's very important if you're going to have some sort of like dotted 8th note or something tied, to be able to get that interval correct. Otherwise, it doesn't. It will just feel more like the first section. But she's able to pull off that rhythm correctly, so we get a different feel. And then a change all the way to triplet note groups in that third section, right, in that third sort of verse line. And so we have three distinct rhythmic feels across that one verse section, and that's a very good delivery. And if you're going to keep your rhythmic emphasis in the vocal line, that's what you want to do, right? And you can find examples of it in many other songs, but the fact that we're keeping that rhythmic intensity in the vocal, but we're also keeping it interesting. It's not falling into like the same pattern over and over again to where it becomes too predictable, and you like they're keep changing it up on you before we even reach the next chorus section. Pre-chorus, that short pre-chorus there, more emphasis on melody. Actually, that's where we shift from a more rap rhythmic style and get some definite melody where we have shapes to these vocal lines, and they're kind of sort of stepping up, right? Like it's not a dramatic jump up in the pitch, but it sort of walks up, very deliberately. and avoids any sort of strain, because we don't jump really high up into like the falsetto head voice range or anything like that. This is all full voice still, but she's pushing towards the upper limit of that and keeping it very, full and resonant, so it feels good. Also, the shift in the chord progression there are some, like maybe there's synth horns sounds that are coming in. The sort of rhythm section is filling out with a little bit more. That's probably the most rich texture right in that sort of concise pre-chorus section, right? Because I hear other things. You have the hat that's going, you have the bass that's going, you have the vocal melody now, this melody line that's very, very definite, right? Like it's you can hear it very clearly. We have more sustain on the notes, it's more legato, everything's connected. But the in between all that, now there's these, and there's synth plugin. It's like it's synth instrument sounds. I want to say horns, maybe like some strings, but they have very, very specific production treatments give it to them, like the way they're EQ'd to focus on some of the mids, right? Because it's not like bright brassy horns, right? And it's not like those real tense string sounds. Everything's kind of, for lack of a better term, muted, but to fit within like a very specific range of what the sound actually, making it more like a tone, right? And it could be synth tones, but it sounds like it's meant to imitate instrument sounds like a horn or strings, but they're really filling in the chord pitches, right, over that brief progression in the pre-chorus. It's the most the fullest texture so far through, like, if you consider everything in the mix.
I'm a baddie, baddie, pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. baddie, 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니. Catch me if you can.
Oh, this is really cool. When that first part, like the chorus comes in, she's got that 16th note subdivision, right? The baddie, baddie. We're still doing like 1E and a 2E and that like that's it's a new school sound, but it's kind of an old school idea, like that reminds me of a lot of old school 90s rap music, like Gin and Juice, like old stuff, man. Like it's a bit of something from the past, but the sound itself is not that old school type of synth sound, right? This is much cleaner, much more modern, like very, very contemporary. And after those couple of lines in this na 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 in this section, they've brought back that consonant bass descending line, right? And they kind of use that same synth tone, but now they've switched up the rhythm on it, and it gives you a more complex pattern. But so within the chorus section, they bring in that very sort of tense, dissonant sound at first, and then step back into that more consonant sound by bringing back that descending bass line that's going on. And this is more playful. Even the lyric, this na 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 na, like they're just having fun, right? So it's kind of like they brought a little bit of tension, right? It got a little bit of intense at the beginning of the chorus, but then it's like, I'm just playing, like I'm not taking it that seriously, right? Like, and you get more room, and you get that great consonance, and everything just kind of smooths out. But they're very, very cool grooves in this track. Like, just every section that you go through, the vibe is very specific. It's you can identify it very easily. It stands out as what the musical idea is, and our ins and outs right in between the sections are not abrupt, and they're not like forceful. They give you a nice transition with like a fairly concise pre-chorus section too. It's not long, it's not a drawn out thing. They change it up on you slightly, and then shift you into the next thing, and then ease you out of it back into this different groove, and it all works together very well. It's good work in between the sections.
Another
shuffle rhythm. That was even more concise. I felt like we got 2 measures the first time around, but that was only 1. But again, you get a lot of texture, and like the mix is full, basically from the top to the bottom. There's a lot of these. Yeah, it's like it sounded like big synth horn, like the more bass, low end type of horn sound, sort of a synth plug-in for that, and it just fills in all the space in between with the bass voice, and then up through what the vocal ranges are, give you the most full texture in the song. But it's very cool. Like there's the sense of tension in the song is very controlled, like very much so. And what's cool about it is that it just feels so good moving it from one section to another. They're not as concise as that pre-chorus was. It still didn't feel like, you know, you were being jerked into like another section or pulled into, you know, it wasn't like everything broke down for a moment and then just started in as if like shifting your attention or something like that. It's a very, very smooth transition in a very limited space. The cats. I don't know if it did that the first verse section or not. I don't remember it. When those backing vocal harmonies started to come in, they're following the chord progression. It's a very nice harmony. I mean, you know, you have the like baddie, bat, like that thing's going on sort of in the lead vocal, but you have a vocal harmony that's stacked behind it, and it's very, very pleasant. Like it's a really soft, warm sound. Probably the softest, warmest sound in the song, like up until this point. Everything else has those vocals have a sort of punchiness to it, like a sort of, you know, a strong delivery. It's not dynamically, but you know, these rhythms and the way that they're delivered, there's a definite like strong quality to it, and that's with most of the sounds in the mix. The bass, the percussion, like there's a very, it's measured, but the emphasis is on like the strength of these sounds. And we get to that section right there. Those backing vocal harmonies are very different. Like it you know, the feel of it is so warm. Like it's such a soft sound too. Like that the dynamic level is very measured again. And it just stands out a lot. That's why I'm thinking, like, did I even hear that in the first section? Because I don't think I did. I think they actually sort of develop the section at this point in the song and kind of add that on. And then we're going to get this, I would call it a bridge, and it's more instrumental. Like they create another space in here. And it's interesting because I don't remember if there's any vocal at all. Like the emphasis is not at all on the vocals. It's just in the mix. Yeah. They definitely developed the chorus section and sort of expand on it and add some things the second time around. Again, keeping it interesting, right? Is similar to actually what the vocals do in the verse sections. Is there's a lot of the same like basis for the idea, like the basic idea where it starts is maintained, but they're giving you variation. They're giving you new patterns, playing off of what's already been established, and it keeps it interesting. Like that was a very, I guess, a breakdown, you could say, like when the synths came in and kind of took over. Like the synth became the lead vocal. It basically, like, it takes over the melody. It takes over the lead sort of melody in the song there. Really interesting approach.
Catch me if you can. Daddy, 나는 앞서 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾을 테니 catch me if you can.
Very fun ending section there when, like, all those different patterns come together that were previously introduced since the beginning of the song. It's great because it has like this definite strength, right? There's like very strong parts in here, but the continuity is so lush. Like it never feels like it does this wild turn into a completely different area or space. It's all very comfortable transitions, in and out. And I mean, the way it's done with like just one measure, like the second pre-chorus into the second chorus, it's so brief, but it works. It works by introducing a lot of these different sounds that fill out the mix, like a little bit earlier, a little bit sooner, but with more complex patterns. So like, okay, primes your ear and then transition into the chorus section. But everything is done in a way that just makes it very, very enjoyable for the listener, And it's fun because they're taking you to many different feels, right? Many different sort of takes here, different spaces, right? You're giving you different grooves and stuff. Okay. But never in a way that's like abrupt, where everything just kind of stops and then starts again, but different. Like the transitions in between are very, very well done, right? And this is a great compositional sort of sense to overall song structure, keeping a wonderful continuity and keeping it interesting by giving you all these differences and variation, like in our vocal rhythm patterns, right? Even that second verse having the three distinct feelings, right, between the line distributions there, and having straight 16th notes, then a shuffle rhythm, then triplet groupings, that a really nice development overall. And just, man, really great transitions in between the sections. Really specific and unique sounds, such as that big clanging sort of steel can accent on the during the chorus section. Really interesting. Like, you kind of like, that's such a specific sound. It's you probably think about using it even beforehand. You're like, I want to make this percussion, but I want to use this clang, like I want to throw this in there, but everything fits together really well. Some really great production actually on all of these different sounds, because there is a degree of specificity with it. When that pre-chorus section comes around and we get like a really full mix, like a really, really rich texture there, nothing overpowers anything else. So everything is very, very measured and carefully assembled throughout the mix. And and then those backing vocal harmonies too, that just like popped up, the second time around. I was like, oh, what is this? But it's a really, really incredible sound. Like, and since most of the vocal delivery up until that point is more the rap style, so the emphasis is on rhythm, and there's actually very little melodic emphasis. But when you get to that point and you hear this vocal harmonization that's going on. It's so good. Like, it's so nice. It has to be backing vocals, which is kind of a shame. It would be nice if you could hear that have a little bit more presence in the mix, because it's such a great sound. But they probably took it up right up to the point where, you know, you have to keep it, right? Because otherwise it starts to perhaps overpower some of the mix that's going on there. So to keep it comfortable and pleasant to listen to. But it's a really great vocal harmony. I mean, it's a beautiful sound. That's like all of a sudden, you know, this little pocket of very warm, bright vocals. It's wonderful, man. If you find that, it's like, oh, that's a great part of the song, and it's just backing vocals, you know. But this is fun. This is fun. I especially like the big cats running around. I was never really a cat person before, but I have a cat now, so you know, cats are cool. I like cats. These are fun. These big giant cats running around. Oh man. But this is a cool song, man. This is really cool. You know, everything about it is very, very cool. Yeah, this is, some people probably have a taste for IVE's, you know, some of the sort of like bigger sounds, you know, like some of those songs that have a lot of that big, rich synth sound that's going on, very full. Those are fun. This actually is kind of a more mellow, laid back song from IVE, you know, but it still does very cool things and stands out like in its own ways, you know. It's very interesting though throughout. It's a good work from IVE. It's an interesting sound. It's an interesting like direction to go in with their music, you know. It's fun. It's fun. This is fun for many, many reasons, and stays interesting throughout, but keeping a continuity. Very good writing, man. Very good composition. IVE BADDIE. It was fun. It's fun.